Well, thank you very much, Rasa, for the introduction and the invitation, and thank you for all the team and this fantastic city. It's been really a joy to walk around and to get to know you all. Also yesterday in the show, which was a very, very lovely, great exhibition. So I will try to talk about the research, but I am taking maybe the path of sharing a little bit more of the journey this research has been. Precisely, I'm interested in the idea of journeying as a part of the artistic research process, because it's not just that we investigate a topic, it's also how the topic becomes part of us in that period of work. So, allow me to take you in this meandering journey where you can might see me quite present, and at the same time, I see my planned companions as we started to talk about them in the project. So I titled initially this research strand plants movements, and I was not interested only in the question of why plants have been known in popular culture as less than uh, perhaps because of the heritage, the ideas that classical ideas that plants do not move. So not just being only sessile beings, but we attributed this idea that plants are quiet, they are silent and stay in the background, plus they don't move. Only to realize that, of course, there are many ways to debunk these ideas, because plants play a quite active role in life. Also in the big picture planetary relations that we experience. So I want to start with this little text. So plants create and sustain the weather, enable life at all scales, and resist constant acts of ecocide. Plants can no longer be seen as passive actors in the cosmic play of life, for they invented ways to insert cosmic energy, which is solar energy, into the biosphere to run the machineries of life. So I like to think about this to start thinking in that aspect of movements. If they don't move precisely on themselves at a rate that we can perceive, well, perhaps it's because they are engaged in a different kind of movement, a larger scale movement of the world. So because the film that I'm showing here in the exhibition is one of many that I produced in the course of the research project, I wanted to start here with this reflection about the day-time relation that happens with plants of the Amazon region. So the first thought for me, which was quite, I'd say like a crash against a very, very simple idea, is that when we think of the Amazon as how, again, it's known in visual culture and popular culture as like this sea of green, and it's communicated with these aerial shots of this huge, large encompassing green landscape. That's only half of the Amazon, because at in the equator, the sun sets at 6 p.m. and rises at 6 a.m. It's only 12 hours of sunlight in the 24-hour cycle. So there is another big part of plant life that happens at night, or must happen at night, because yeah, it is like when the sun ceases to feed plants with light, there must be something happening. So in that case, I became interested in the night of the Amazon. What happens beneath that veil of green, where actually this is when machineries like, bulldozers and all kinds of machineries used to deplete the Amazon are quiet, they're turned off. People don't work in cutting trees and so on often during the night. So what happens in that temporal gap of the Amazon, which is ultimately also space that is more the realm of non-human forest beings than human forest beings. So it's the time when animals go to feed, insects pollinate plants. It's the time when shamans also perform their healing practices to the ill. So in the Amazon also there is an effect which is the light in the rainforest manifests in full spectrum, and for plants this energy is material to be transformed into the chemistry that sustains life. Fluorescency appears when absorbed light is then re-emitted from a plant following the change of chlorophyll molecules from excited to non-excited state. This is what you see in this image. So I like to think of this metaphor that if you could turn the light of the sun with a switch, off like a switch, you would not have a pitch black forest immediately, but for a couple seconds, plants will radiate light from within. They will release this excess energy as fluorescence, and you have it with fungi, but also many plants display this, and also the leaves are radiating this life, which plants can perceive as well. So under the canopy of the Peruvian Amazon, this is where this part of the project took off. In Madre de Dios, plants like bromelias or even pineapples have gained an advantage in the competition for light and resources by adapting their circadian rhythm and metabolic rhythms to feed from light during the day and process minerals, exchange gases at night. This is known as photosynthesis CAM, CAM. Meanwhile, neighboring plants from a sort of produce a kind of contactless dance to reposition their leaves in accordance to the coming sun, the rays of the sun, or the light of the sun, but also the light emitted back from one plant to another. So for plants, light is a source, but also a byproduct. And there are many ways to pick up on this signal. So UVA is part of the electromagnetic spectrum, or ultraviolet frequencies between 320 and 400 nanometers stimulate metabolic and morphological processes in plants, including photosynthesis and biomass production. When lit with artificial lighting in the UVA range, the plant absorbs as much energy as it needs, but emits back the excess energy, either as heat or fluorescence. So this is how these pictures were achieved. I was working with a multispectral camera and a UVA light source with very specific ranges, and so and a set of filters that filter the UVA light, so you only get visible light, and it's not the light reflected on the plant, but it's the light emitted from the plant. This process is often used to monitor photosynthetic efficiency and assess the contribution of a given plant in ecosystem services, such as like how much carbon capture and so on they're involved in. So what is surprising is that I produced a series of photographs and a film, the film that you see in the exhibition, in an area like very close to an area that has been very affected by gold mining in the Peruvian Amazon. So there are some terrible scars that you encounter there, which has there is something that I call an inverse oasis, because it's a patch of desert in the middle of this green, apparently green, untouched forest. This patch, this wound extends 2 kilometers wide by 15 kilometers long, and it's heavily polluted with mercury. So there are ongoing experiments and efforts to conduct phytoremediation in these landscapes, but nothing seems successful. So there's no plants that have been discovered to absorb mercury, but more so there are no plants. It's very hard for plants to grow in this totally exposed, now desert-like space, because few plants can take so much sun, like they're exposed 12 hours of the day to the direct sun, and it basically causes a lot of problems in their growth. However, so nearby this site there is, okay, so I continue. I'll go a little bit faster. So I guess in these indigenous chakras, Hahañ is the word that people, the Kamsha people use. So this is a little picture from the market. Like medicinal plants are part of part of the diet. You know, you buy them next to the garlic, and it's just a little picture to illustrate how kind of integral part of the diet this a number of plants are via teas and using cooking and so on. So there are this is another site that I wanted to highlight just because what you imagine in this that these regions are as like completely diverse and pristine forests. No, it's just a kind of patch system of gardens or reserves where plants are given time and space to grow and flourish. What you have in between is now like an urbanized, you know, like very messy, very disorderly little towns that are growing and breaking the flow of or the biological corridors that plants need to travel an animal. So this is a little image of one of those reserves that where you find some of those medicinal plants in the sort of indigenous environments, but not. So that's a little contradiction for me. But so I want to show you a little this image to give you a sense of how I work. So I move in this spectrum where at points I'm very much you know, reporting, analyzing. I have become, or I have tried to work in a public facing activist operational sense, but at the same time, there is a lot that is about private experience. So for me, traveling to these regions leads to not just be there to report, but be there to absorb. So what is the sense that I have, or what happens to my body when I'm in these landscapes? This is the Peruvian Amazon in La Pampa. So just a little story that my colleague Julia asked me to share with you is that after one of the trips, I became heavily sick or badly sick. I had a fungal infection with a very rare fungus that entered my lungs and took some years to know what it was. I was under treatment at the Swiss Tropical Institute, becoming one of the 2 cases of Europe known with this strange infection. The other case didn't make it. So it means that I was not just the researcher in the field, but I became the subject of a research because they needed my tissue samples and all that to experiment. So this work I've done implies a lot of listening, practice a deep listening method with various interlocutors, this is a midwife, this is Ayenan's mother, who you see also in the film, who uses plants to treat women during the labor, and I find that fascinating. But again, this is, see a little picture of this nice, interesting paper. What was found is basically I had a fungal infection that somehow was entered my lungs somewhere in one of those journeys, and is ultimately was discovered that it's discovered that it's a fungus that grows only in desert areas and has never been spotted in the Amazon, except in my lungs then. So that scarring really mirrors the type of scarring that has happened in La Pampa, for example. And the process that basically led nowhere here by treatment was complemented by the indigenous doctor or medic, Miguel Taita or Bajo Miguel, who treated me. And he treated me also, surprisingly, with the plants that I work with. So I was treated with 27 plants that helped a lot with the recovery, the scarring, and also at helping to distress my lungs. And one of them was the Brugmansia borrachero, or the Engel's trumpet. I'm sorry, I think I'm kind of going a little bit of the time given, but I'll try to speed up and conclude soon. So, so I guess what I'm interested in, there was an encounter with this plant, which is, let's say, second part of the research in a way, by means of smell. So it's a plant that you might find here in Europe. It was brought, it's a Brugmansia or Angelstrompet in German, or Angel's Trumpet, Floripondio toe. It's a plant that has, to me, has this aspect of smells. Quite, for some people, it's a delicious smell. For other people, it's very, like, it gives them nausea. It's a beautiful plant, but the fact that it's beautiful has helped it to attract us. So it's a plant that migrated. It was brought, one of those trophy plants, to Europe during the conquest of the Americas, and so it has this kind of double-edged sword, because this beauty, this appeal of the smell, has attracted us to grow it. So it's a plant, it's a cultigen, so it doesn't grow any more in the wild. It needs us humans as much as we need them. So this plant is also known to be in, like, across this region. This is the Pan Amazon, or the Andean Amazon region. It's a plant that has traveled, so has been part of, it's part of the Ingano, the Kamsha, the Siona communities from the low Amazon, because it's in the, let's say, in the scale of medicinal plants, it's above, it's at the very top. It's reserved for ingestion by shamans who are very knowledgeable experts to deal with very, very complex problems. So it's a plant that, when we go when we think about indigenous medicine, of course, there's ayahuasca and other number of plants that are dieted, but this one is very rare to be given ever, because it's a plant that is reserved for wicked problems, is reserved for solving really complex issues in their communities. So I just want to kind of talk about this briefly, that I'm interested in also a return to animism, to bring back that logic. How do people talk about plants? How do people think and relate to them as companions, as plant teachers? So in that sense, for example, if you think of this plant is part of the family of the Solanaceae, which is to, it's a soothing plant. It implies also that it somehow channels this energy, this healing energy from the gods, or some kind of gods. But it is quite a trickster plant as well. It's a plant that whose spirit is very, very, very complex. So I want to share this last quote, and then maybe I wrap up soon. So when one comes into contact with the plant, it's not about just the ingestion, but it's about borrowing the gaze, seeing the world through this plant, how the plant teaches us to look at the forest, back at the forest, back at other plants. So Brugmansia, it's a feared as well as revered plant in these communities. And what is interesting is that it's taken off. I mean, in Europe, I think there is now in Germany a push to remove it, because there are many cases of teenagers drinking this plant as tea, and there are many cases of amputations and accidents happening here when the plant is taken with a care, without the care. So it is a truly hallucinogenic, dissociative plant. It's a plant whose chemistry, alkaloids, tropane alkaloids, disrupt our synapses. So what I'm interested in is how a plant is able to affect our supposed intelligence, our cognitive functions, to that level of distorting, dissociating. We don't feel the pain. It disassembles what we cherish as an intelligent response to the world. So I'm gonna big jump here. So I'll show you a little bit of artistic outcomes. This is another it's like snap from another exhibition that is ongoing, that you don't see here, but I mean, it shows you what I'm doing with this plant. So there is a multi-channel film, and the film revolves around a traveler of sorts. So it has a fictional element where a traveler via this plant is transported to Europe. So for me, this plant is an interesting way to open up a discussion about the use of plant medicine, not only in the Amazon, but also in Europe. There is a tradition here, and how plants have participating in this intelligible way of communicating with us. So how biomedicine and ingestion plants teach us about the world and about the human body. Just maybe a little, sorry, this is a film, I'm not going to play it. This is stills from the film. And just a little last quote again. So I think if cognition, according to Clark Chalmers, included the tools we use to think, pens and paper, words, processor calculators, and so on. So I think that to me, to think about this plants that are used in medicine and ethnomedicinal practices are also a tool to think with. So in that sense, let's say my stand here is to look at the plant intelligence as a relational aspect. It's about this articulation that happens with, is a thinking with the plant. So in that sense, I guess you can see more of this in the website and so on. So thank you so much, and made it just in time.